Good morning, everybody, or grand rising, everybody. Now that I come into the Spirit and Coffee, cup of coffee here. What an amazing day! What an amazing weekend! So I this weekend went to something. Good morning. Close the door. Close the door and come here. I love these names that they come up with. Good morning. I think it's Roberto. It's you. It's your little emoji. Or not emoji. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, your profile pic. Good morning, Tony. So this weekend went to Ojo Santa Fe. If you guys know what that is, it is Bath Minerals. It's they have like hot tubs and stuff like that. It's really amazing, quite a beautiful place, and had a time to just relax for the first time in a long time, to just relax, not do anything, not feel like I have to be on the go, 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 right? Because I'm a super, I want to say probably hyperactive person where I'm constantly jumping and, kung fuing and doing this, but I actually laid down and relaxed the entire time, which is pretty interesting for me, and not my norm. But I can tell you that one day of relaxation made a world of wonder. I feel so rejuvenated, and I feel really, really good. And so I'm like, wow, maybe I need to do this more often. So probably something I'm going to put into my practice. Okay, so I sort of want to give this as a tribute to the Spirit and Coffee. It's a tribute to a good friend, Roberto, or is it Tony? Oh, it's Tony on here, not Roberto. Um, that I want to give a tribute to a friend of mine who recently passed away. And this individual, and I want to talk about it from a spiritual alchemist, perspective. And the reason why is because what ends up happening. So let's just say that you start to understand the great work, and when you start to understand it, you start to be seen by everybody, because that's kind of what happens, right? If you're doing the work and you're applying your work, you're going to start to be shown, like it's going to be shown, right? You're going to be revealed. And that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because why? Because now we're stepping into a authenticity, and authenticity is probably the hardest thing to do, because now we're revealing who we are, and we're afraid of that, right? Because we're afraid we're going to be rejected, we're afraid no one's going to like us, we're afraid whatever it is, right? So we have all these fears around being authentic and speaking out. And this is why not everybody does a podcast like this, right? People are like, oh, you're so brave, you're so this, you're so that. Well, I'm just a spiritual alchemist. It's not necessarily that I'm brave and all this, it's that I apply spiritual alchemy to my life. And part of that is being authentic, part of that is speaking my authentic truth. So, good morning, Sandra. So, a friend of mine who passed away, and he was an elder man. Um, but what I loved about this man is that he never hid behind who he was. He never tried to make up, and he was well known and respected. And he was known by a lot of the political people in New Mexico, right? He was involved in some of the politics and stuff like that. But one thing that I loved about him is that he never denied who he was, ever. In fact, he was a humble servant and gave a platform and for people to use their voice. And what do I mean by their voice? We have a shadow side, right? Our shadow side could be, drug addiction. It could be mental, these things that we have in our mental psyche that we don't want to tell anybody, where maybe we talk to our, these energies are demonic energies. I'll just use demonic energies talk to us, and we don't know what to do with it, and so we don't tell anybody. Or the internal voice in our head that's saying things that are vindictive or malicious or vengeful towards others, right? So sometimes people don't want to say that this is what's happening to them, or they don't want to admit that they stole, or they don't want to admit that they were on drugs at one point in their life, right? So this individual, um, did he just said, here's who I am. I am who I am, and that's that. That is what a true alchemist does. They accept who they are fully without any reservation, without trying to hide it, without trying to be like, because that's trickery, right? It's like you can be a spiritual alchemist and hide the truth and manipulate. And that, again, you could say, yeah, they're spiritual alchemists, but again, those are people that are working as sorcerers. When you're working as a magician or light worker, right, you say who you are for the betterment of humanity, and you provide a platform for humanity to be able to speak about it, which is a beautiful thing. So when I found out about this individual, I literally was brought to tears. And why? Because that's what he did. He allowed me to have a platform to speak my voice, to be authentically who I am. Now, the platform he provided was the platform of addiction. And this is something that I want to talk about because I don't know that I talk about it enough. Addiction, and he called it people in recovery, which I loved, and that's sort of what they decided it would be called, people in recovery rather than people in addiction. And because we're always recovering, right, from our addiction, so we're in recovery, we're recovering from this addiction. So anywho, he gave me a platform to actually speak about addiction. So my story is, good morning, Cos. And I think this is the first time I'm speaking my story 100% authentically from when I was a kid to now. Okay. And I'm going to do it because why? Because there are so many people who are hiding behind the veil and embarrassed, right? Feel like they're going to be ostracized or that no one's going to accept them if they speak their story. But here at Spirit and Coffee, no, you have a home. And that's the beauty of Spirit and Coffee. It's a home for everybody, right? It's a platform for people to feel safe. Now, the story goes that when I was a child, right, I engaged in drugs, right? And that's because why? I was a product of my environment. Okay. It's not like I wanted to. It's not like, I don't think people, when their kids get up and they go, hey, I want to be a drug addict. That's not how it works. Okay. We as children are curious about the world. And then we become a product of our environment. And that's typically what happens. Typically, people become the product of their environments based on what they see, what they know, their peers, and the people that they're around, right? And so we sometimes can't see beyond the veil of that. In fact, there's people who never leave their neighborhoods, right? They live there their whole life. They live in this one place and maybe they travel a little bit, but don't really travel. They don't see that there's this entire world, right? So their world is just the place where and space where they live. Beyond that, they don't know what's out there. Beyond that, they don't even go out there. They become a product of their environment. Now, I'm going to say this. The environment that I grew up in was not good. I don't think any parent would say, hey, I want my child to grow up in this environment. Now, did our parents know? Probably not. They had no idea, right? They weren't sure. They just did the best that they could. They put us in a place. They said, go to school here. They didn't know what was going on. But I went to a place where there were gangs, right? And every day, and it's kind of funny because I think that if people from when I was young watch this podcast, I would laugh about it now, but they wanted to fight me all the time, right? So I had to constantly protect myself and fight back. So the gang members, right, that I went to school with, they were on drugs, and we were in middle school. We were only teenagers, but not even teenagers, and they were doing hard drugs, marijuana, cocaine. Okay, marijuana is not a hard drug, but cocaine, right? And who knows, some of them might have been doing heroin back then. Okay. Now, should be shocking to you because these were 11-year-old kids, right? That already knew how to had cocaine on them and all this stuff. This was the environment that I was raised in. Did I ask for it? No. Did I even want it? No. But that's where I went. And that's what it was. And it was what it was. Okay. So I became a product of my environment as I started to get older. Because if you can't beat them, join them, right? That was the mentality. I was a kid. I didn't know. So what ends up happening, right, is I become an alcoholic. I start to drink at a very young age, way young, like 12, okay? Drinking alcohol. Now, this happens with our youth and our children, right? Which is why it's so critical for us to start having these conversations with children, especially if your children are in an environment where this is happening. And trust me, it is. But me coming from a place, right, that was, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was not a good place. It's not a good environment. And I love my state, I love my city, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is me being authentic, not a place you want to raise your kids. Seriously. Just not. And people could be pissed off. We could have people pissed off, but I can tell you right now that where I was raised, no good. That's it. It just wasn't. I don't think any parent would say, yes, this is what I want for my child. I want them to go to a school where there's cocaine and there's drugs and people are drinking alcohol and there's gangs and my child's getting beat up. I saw people get jumped. They tried to jump me. I mean, it was a mess, right? And this is the environment in which I grew up. Now, as I progressed to adulthood, right, I had these patterns. And the patterns were alcoholism mostly, right? With some pills. Now, pills and heroin is a huge problem here where I live. Okay. We have heroin addicts, we have people who are taking prescriptive medications and they start with hydrocodone or all of these drugs. Okay. And they start to take them. And then what happens? Okay. Yeah, no, it's not. I was introduced to cocaine in seventh grade. Yes. So we ourselves were introduced to all of these drugs at a very young age, especially in Albuquerque. Albuquerque's terrible. I'm just going to say it because it's the truth. Okay. And I didn't take it either, not until I was older. See? So there you go. So there were drugs that I tried that I didn't like and didn't do. And I was a downers person. I was a downer. I liked downers. So I drank alcohol and I liked pills. Okay. And that's what I did. And it was normal. It wasn't a bad thing. It was like, oh, whatever. As I got into adulthood, right, I started to get sick. Now I've lost friends. I've lost people to drugs, to alcohol. And it's terrible. Okay. Right. When you have your friends that are too young dying from this stuff. Okay. So why am I speaking about this? I'm speaking about this because literally I had no platform to talk about my addictions in the past. And I didn't think that my story mattered. I didn't think that my story of addiction mattered, right? To talk to individuals about the addictions I had. Why? Because, oh, I'm a professional, because I'm this, because I'm that, because maybe there's going to be judgment about who I am. Maybe, that's not me anymore. I don't identify with that anymore. But the reality is it's part of my story and it is part of who I am. And I overcame it. So this individual, right, that I had is so Roberto, if you're still here. Anyway, a friend of ours that passed away gave us the platform in order to speak about it. And he was the first individual who said, I want you to come and talk. I want you to talk. I want you to come and tell people your story. And for me, I was uncomfortable. I hadn't really ever told anybody my true story of drug use or drug addiction. I had never spoke about it, right? I didn't have the platform and I didn't think that I had the ability to help those who may have been in addiction. So I just didn't talk about it because I was like, well, I didn't go to any AA meetings. I didn't go to anything. I just quit. I quit cold turkey and that was it. I said, that's enough. I'm done, which I've been sober for 10 years, completely clean. I don't drink alcohol. I rarely even take ibuprofen. Nothing. I do nothing, right, when it comes to all that. So I changed my lifestyle. And part of that is the spiritual alchemy process, right? It didn't happen overnight, but to speak about it is part of the healing. It's part of our process to really, really, really tap into our true story. Who are we truly? You don't have to share it on Facebook Live like me. You don't have to be open and honest about it. But when you do, and when you are, you allow somebody to have a platform to speak it. And that is why I So I listen to individuals who do this, right? For me, he was my elder. For me, I respected him as an elder. He was crazy, but he never denied it. He didn't try to act like he wasn't crazy. He didn't say, I'm not crazy. He's like, I'm crazy. And I am who I am. And I was an addict and I had and I'm in recovery and I'm always going to be in recovery, but I'm going to support those that are recovered. That is the process of the alchemy, accepting every part of who you are and not trying to hide behind a veil and pretend you're something else. I was a drug user at one point. People would be like, what? Yeah, because that's my story. Did I want to be? No. Does any kid want to be? Did I? No, I didn't want to try it. I didn't want to be a part of it. Right. But then I finally just said, I don't know anything beyond this. I don't know anything. How do I get beyond the veil of this? How do I reach for something more? Now, what got me out? And I'm going to tell you a story. There was one night, okay, and this story is pretty crazy, actually. This was one of the pivotal moments in my life that I scared the shit out of myself, okay? And I was about 16, 15, 16. And I was in the bathroom and I was looking and I was looking in the mirror and I had drank way too much. I think I had alcohol poisoning, to be quite honest with you. I don't think they caught that. Anybody caught that. But it was awful. And I was looking in the mirror and I was praying because throughout my life, regardless of what moment I was in, I always believed in God. I had a deep faith for God. And this is how I transcended this particular moment, right? I was looking in the mirror and I thought I was going to die, literally. I mean, that's how terrible I felt. And all of a sudden I heard this big boom and I was like, wow, what was that? And it was me. I didn't even know that I had fallen to the floor. I had zero idea that it was me that made the noise. And I just started crying. And I was like, how did I become so sick like this? How did I allow this to happen? How am I not controlling this? What is it that's, and I got up and I prayed and I cried. And I'm like, God, what am I doing to myself? Why am I, help me? I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. I need some guidance. I need something, right? Some spiritual grounding. What was I calling for? I was calling for my roots to come back, for my rituals to come back, for my ancestors to guide me, to show me the path. I didn't have that. All I had was a bunch of friends who were teaching me how to drink and party. That's really what I had. That's literally what I had, honestly. Were a bunch of friends to show me how to party. There was no elder to show me how to go to the mountains and pick sage for smudge. I wanted that, but it was nowhere to be found. So I substituted that for my peers to feel accepted, to feel like I belonged, but it was never me. Internally, I never wanted that. But what was I supposed to do? I wanted to belong. I needed a family. I needed to feel like I had a family. And so what did I do? I engaged in that behavior, which was no good. It was no good for me. I was just harming myself. So I prayed, right? And I prayed that I could overcome this. And I got older and I didn't quit right away. In fact, again, it's only been 10 years since I've actually been sober and completely clean without even a single drop of anything of at all. But it took time to get there. And little by little by little by little, right? There was a day that came to me and I said, wow, I can't see my life without alcohol. And that scared me. That's where I was scared because I was like, God, how come? Why can't I overcome that? What am I missing? And when I went to India, and I got very sick in India. And I got sick probably because of all the alcohol in my body, and it was going through all this stuff that I literally almost died. Okay. And when I came back, I realized that there was this bigger thing at play that I could strive for and that I could move towards, because I found myself, right? I found myself in my altruistic state of mind to give back to humanity in a way that I couldn't comprehend. I had always felt it internally, and that's the thing we feel inside of us. We feel that calling to be altruistic. It's part of our DNA. Everybody feels it, and this is where people tend to go off the deep end on the other side. They don't know how to materialize it. They become a product of their environment. They don't have a platform to talk about the addiction where they would be respected. If I talk about it, am I going to be respected anymore? Or am I going to be looked at less than? No, you're not less than because you were an addict. You're not less than because you had a drug addiction. You're a warrior because you've overcome it. And this is where I cry. This is where the tears come in. And this is why my heart was so touched and hurt when I got the news of this individual. Because he understood that, right? He understood that overcoming the addiction meant that you were a warrior. People who have not overcome addiction like that don't understand the journey, that they could never understand it. And there are people that are trying to stand in their warrior status, right? They're trying to stand with their staff. Right? With their staff, to be a warrior, to have a platform, a voice, to talk about it, to be able to say, yeah, you know what? I beat that. I looked at that demon right in its face, right? I love it. Here we go, Katya, because you're on here, right? You bow and you give it a proper bow, right? The demons. I love that. You're absolutely right. And when we were talking this weekend, that made so much sense. Just give it that proper bow. We look at the demon right in its face and we give it a proper bow, not because we respect it, because we're ready for battle at any time. I'm ready to take on this battle. I'm ready to take it on, right? And that is the beauty. So if you're in addiction or if you're trying to overcome addiction, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. What was taken from you was your rituals and your rites and your lineage, and there's historical trauma built on top of it. And all of a sudden, you're the bad person because of it. No, you're not. We're just looking for a place to belong. That's it. We're looking for a place to connect with people. They took it away from us. That's the point. And they put in, what they did is they said, let me take your rituals away. And then in place of that, let me make you an addict to this heroin, to this alcohol. And guess what? Now you're a slave to it. You're not a slave to it. That's bullshit. You're a warrior. You overcome it. You look at it in its face and you battle it. And that's what I did. I had to battle it. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was looking at myself and saying, who the F are you? What is going on? God help me. To fall on my ass and not even know that it was me who fall, that's a scary thing. Linga, yes, I'm talking about addiction, and I just became sober 8 days ago after 20 years of abuse. Oh man, I need this so much today. Love, peace, and coffee is what the world needs. You're making me cry. I'm crying, Linga, trust me. And this is in honor of a good friend of ours, Adan, and he doesn't realize the impact he's making across the world. See? That's how it works, right? Congratulations for being 8 days sober. It's one day at a time. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with you. Get your staff. I talked about, and I'm trying hard not to like just break down and cry completely to where I can't talk, but I talked about Moses, right? And it seems like every time I talk about Moses, it's almost like Moses' energy is being called forth, right? Because more and more people show up as I talk about Moses. The staff that Moses held, that staff represents our divine will, our will to live, our will to rise, our will to use fire to make anew, right? To burn up all the shit that's inside of us and transform it into this beautiful thing. So we take up our staff as warriors and we look at it in the face, right? And that's the thing. We give it a proper bow and we say, we are ready, right? You're a warrior because you have overcome. Thanks, Katya. I've come back to watch this subject is way good. He was a wonderful man. Yes, Adam was a wonderful man. So we take up our staff and we give it a proper bow. Okay. Now, how do we do that? It's not easy, but if I can, you can. I'm no better. I'm no different. But if I can do it, you can do it. And there comes a point where you replace it with a ritual. You connect into your lineage. You have to know who your ancestors are. You have to connect and accept that, yeah, okay, I'm an addict. Now what? Now I'm in recovery. And that's what I love. It's not about addiction, it's recovery. You're in recovery. You're and it is hard. It is hard, but that a warrior's life isn't easy. Those who are in addiction, that's their battle. That's their war. They're fighting an internal war, a battle. And to overcome that, so my friend, right, who passed away just recently, was a warrior. And he reminded me of that. That my story mattered and that my story could impact others in some way and that my story didn't make me less of a human being. Guys, I'm trying to get through this. So he didn't let political rhetoric get to him, right? He was seen in the community as a person and he had influence, right? But he never, ever, ever denied who he was. He just said it, okay? No matter what, he just said it. And that gave us the ability, right? To overcome and to speak and to accept, right? Accept in your heart that it's part of your story and it's beautiful. And one day, right, you're going to sit back. And I look after 10 years of being completely sober, right? After 10 years, I look back and I'm like, damn, look what I did. Look what I've overcome. And no one can take it away from me. So does it scare me, right? When does it scare me when people threaten or do all these things? No, it doesn't, because I've overcome so much already. It's like, what can you do to me? There's nothing you can do to me that I haven't already done to myself, number one. And number two, I'm a warrior. The people who went to drug addiction are warriors, and they're they don't have the rituals that they need. That's what happened, right? We've become a product of all of this shit that they placed on us, right? All of before this, we were doing rituals, right? We were connecting to our ancestors. We were connecting to the astral plane. We were connecting to interdimensional time space. We were doing all that, and they ripped it from us. They didn't want us to have the power. They colonized. There was bloodshed, there was genocide, there was all these things, right? And we've seen this happen over and over again. And they took away our rituals and they replaced it with poison. And we ritualized the poison. That's what's happened. When someone does heroin, they're ritualizing heroin. It's a ritual. You can ask any heroin addict, because the ritual of drum ceremony was ripped away from them, because the ritual of connecting to the earth and going and picking the plants and using it as medicine was ripped away from them. That's what happened. And they said, here, use this plant, right? Here's this. There's your medicine. When it's poison, and they fed it right to us. That is what we're seeking, to reconnect to our ancestors and reconnect to our rituals. You have rituals. What are my rituals? This is one of my rituals. I get up and do spirit and coffee. That's why I do it. It's my medicine. It's what I get up and do. I don't need to drink alcohol anymore. It's been replaced. I do kung fu. I go to the gym and work out. I read. I've replaced my rituals. I wasn't raised in a culture that taught me how to ritualize what I do. That is what has been ripped away. And the warriors are the ones who put on the ceremony, who said, okay, we're going to do this ceremony. I'm going to lead you through it. And I'm not just talking about warriors that fought in battle. I'm talking about the warriors that got up and said, I'm here to protect and serve my community. That's a warrior. I'm here to protect and I'm here to serve. And you bow, right? And then what, Katya? You give it a proper bow. And I loved what you said. So if you ever just want to write it, that's great. So Linga, I'm not sure if you want to share, but I don't know what your addiction is or what you're overcoming. And I don't know if you want to share. It's totally up to you. Yes, you can absolutely call up. I would love, okay, let me get Lingo on here.
Hey, love.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Oh, I'm just crying.
So am I. And I'm trying to keep it together so I can talk to these people. And
I can't believe I just I can't believe I picked the phone up and saw you on here, and then you're talking about this at a time when I'm like, everything you just said absolutely resonated with me. And yeah, I've been addicted to alcohol for probably 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And binge drinking heavy and breaking promises and breaking bones. And you know, I think I've been hiding like my actual self, you know, by just masking it with grog. And I'm like ritualized it as well. So I understand what you mean. Like it becomes a ritual, you know. And the ritual, I didn't think about it, but the ritual is the thing that's hard to break.
That's
That's,
yes.
it's not like a physical addiction to it for me. It's the ritual of doing it and then the habit that the patterns that you form that make you identify as those rituals. So, I just find it really interesting that like we have lots of talks at sporadic times, and I just feel like there's something bigger at play, and I'm I'm quite grateful for the fact that we end up getting on the same wavelength about self-discovery often, and I don't think that's by accident, you know, and yeah, I just hope that I can keep to it, you know, and discover who I actually am.
Yes. So my question to you is like, what ritual can you replace it with?
I don't know.
That's the
I
heart.
don't
So
know.
that exactly, and that's the heart. So I don't know if my friend Katya's on here, but we do these questions, and I told her when I coach, when you get to the I don't know, that is the point where you get to discover. Because the clearer that you become, right? The I don't know is just maybe I don't want to accept or I don't know how to discover. It's that point where we say, I don't know. How can I know? How can I come to know? What do I get to
Yeah,
discover?
what do I have to do to find out?
Uh-huh. Yes, and you have your because you do know because it's you because you are you and you are you and you alone, right? No one can give it to you, and that's the hardest part for people. They want other people to give them the remedy. You are the remedy. You have
Well,
the remedy within you.
I feel like for the last 10 years or so, in particular, I've been searching for something, like something's been missing. Like, I'm married, I got a beautiful wife, I got beautiful kids, I got a great job, I got a career in a field that helps people. Like, I'm not poor, I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. I don't go without food, and everyone around me is healthy, And still, there was this big piece missing. And for me, I didn't know what it was, and it's only sort of dawned on me in the last 7 days that there was actually nothing missing. There was something else in the way of everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
That's a great awareness to come to.
yeah, there was nothing missing. There's never been anything missing.
Mm-hmm.
But here I was searching for something and then drinking because I was searching for something. What the fuck? That's insane.
Okay, so here's my theory. My theory is that we're searching for God, for meaning and purpose, and that comes through our connection through God, universe, whatever you want to call it. And what's happened is because they've taken away our connection. We used to connect to God or to the cosmos through ritual, and
Mm,
they've taken that away purposefully because of the power and magnitude that comes when you do that. And they've given us poison in place of it. So it's this false connection to what we think is God.
mm,
Because for just the moment, and I can tell you with alcohol for myself, as soon as that alcohol hit my blood, as soon as it did, I felt this sense of euphoria.
yep.
It was like I was connected to something greater, but it was false. It was almost like this instant gratification to something greater
Mm-hmm.
than myself, and then feeling poisoned and sick afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that thing, that connection that we want to feel to something, the divine, something greater than us. And that when we replace it with the ritual that is our true medicine, what ends up happening is that we are called to our altruism and our divine purpose.
Mm.
And then when we connect and tap into it, that euphoria doesn't just, it's not instant gratification. It lasts longer and there's no sickness afterwards.
Mm. Okay.
So a lot of it is, and Lingo, you know this, that I was doing a lot of like my ancestry
Mm-hmm.
and going back and talking about all of the traumas and the historical traumas and all the stuff that's happened in the past. That healing is part of it. It's knowing where you came from. And once you understand that, you can start recreating and retapping in and talking to your elders and your ancestors and asking them to guide you. And before you know it, you're connecting in ways that you wouldn't even I mean, it's just, it's crazy the ways that you start to connect.
So it's funny you say that because so my father was adopted and he's from Eastern Europe, something like Russia or Ukraine. And like his father, sorry. But we don't know, we could never work out what the link was. We lost my grandfather. And so I always felt like there was a gap. And only recently we've sort of discovered a little bit um about it. And it turns out you won't believe this, but I moved to this area where he moved to when he first came to Australia. And in the 50s, and Australia's a big country. And I just happened to move to this place that my grandfather was in. And yeah, everything's for a reason, right?
Yes.
And I just I found out on my mum's side that they were Irish, and Roddy, he was like he was an alcoholic. He died early, and where he lived was a place that I'd moved to before I moved to this place that I'm in now.
Wow.
And so I've
So,
been like retracing his footsteps,
yep. And that means that he's trying to probably talk to you.
Yeah. But
And so, go
I've
ahead.
stuffed up so many times. Nah, like I've stuffed up so many times drinking. So many things I've done that I regret.
So part of it, so Linga, it's looking at like, okay, forgiveness, obviously for one thing, forgive yourself. And then if you choose to, talking to your grandfather. Was it your great grandfather or your grandfather?
Uh, Biological grandfather, he's dead now.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. He's still with you. That's what I'm saying. I mean, when you look culturally, so if you go back, so if you go, so Russia, and that's where the actual, in Siberia actually, but I don't know if that's where you're from, but they had rituals. They had rituals that were taken from them. Ireland, right? They
Mm-hmm.
had these ancient practices. They were indigenous at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was land based and worked with, that was ripped right from them. And
Mm-hmm.
so you are connected to that, and reconnecting to that means reconnecting to your ancestors. So for me, I have talks with my ancestors who are no longer here. I ask them to guide me.
In the consciousness or subconsciousness?
Well, so again, this is where the active imagination comes in. And I've been talking a lot about Carl Jung and his theories,
Hmm.
right? Where we talk about archetypal imagination and figures showing up.
Yeah,
So
I saw one recently.
it's the unconscious and the conscious mind learning to connect and talk to each other.
Oh wow. So I had a moment last week when I was really off the rails, like drunk, and a lady in a white gown knocked my phone out of my hands, and I know I was drunk, but it definitely happened, you know. And I went, whoa! I just saw a ghost. You know that's what I thought.
I have a question for you. What was the landscape like where you were? Were you by water?
Um, no, I was actually sleeping in bed.
You were in bed. Okay. Okay. I'm just curious because here's the deal, Linga. Like you said, we're connected, and this is the power of what I call the great work. I don't know you, right?
No.
I mean, I know you from Spirit and Coffee, right? I don't know you. I've never met you
Hmm.
personally, but I know you, right? But I do know you.
Yeah.
So the other day on your podcast, I knew that there was something not right. I felt it.
Right.
And I asked you if you were okay, remember?
Yeah.
Because I knew it. I felt it. So you're absolutely right that there's a connection, and this is the beauty of the great work. We're interconnected in ways we don't comprehend or understand. That someone across the entire world can have
Mm.
that connection, and that I could feel, right? I could feel your energy was off. I could feel it. I knew that there was something not right. And for me, sometimes I feel like I pry. So I try not to ask too many questions because people are like, why are you asking so many questions? And it's not because I'm nosy, it's because I want people to heal and I want to understand what's going on with them. And I was going to email you and say, I can feel something's not right. What's going on? Are you okay? Do you need my support? But I didn't want to pry. But
Mm.
obviously, you were circled back around anyway, because that's the way it's supposed to happen.
It's so
So
beautiful, eh?
I could tell. I just felt, I could feel it. I just felt it. I could feel it. I got on your podcast. Like, again, it's the same thing. I was like, I linked on and I was like, oh, I have time. And then you were silent. And I was like, no, something's off. I feel it, totally feel it. So we as a collective heal together. We do it
Hmm.
together as a unit. And sometimes you have medicine I need, and sometimes I have medicine you need. And that's how we do it. And that's what we replace the poison with.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because this is real
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah.
That other
You know,
medicine is not medicine. It's medicine. It's poison in disguise. It's acting like medicine, but it's really poison.
that's a very simple way to look at it, but it does help. And you're right. And the confirmation I had was that, like, I shed a tear when I was listening to you talk. Before you started crying, I was shedding a tear because what you were saying was hitting a mark for me, right?
Yep.
So that's that's a universal moment, you
Yeah.
know. That's
Yes.
that's a moment that's bigger than you and I put together. And whoever's listening to this, like, I don't know what other platforms you're streaming on, but that's special. Like and I'm very, very, very grateful for that, Nat. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for getting on here. I know you're a very private person, so coming on here and being brave. And I remember our first call. You're the first person I had ever call in. I remember.
Mhm.
And I do know that and it's hard. It's hard. Again, we don't want to speak about these things because we're afraid we're going to be judged. We're afraid people are going to like us. We're afraid we're going to be ostracized. Maybe we're shameful of the things that are inside of us that we don't want to talk about, but we cannot heal until we talk about it. We have to be able to let it out, talk about it, be accepted, and be understood so that we can find clarity. Without you being able to talk about it, how are you going to find the clarity around it? You're not going to. It's going to stay inside you.
And then you're right, because that's the thing that sort of keeps me searching for something. I'm actually searching for the clarity of being free of that.
You know what, Linga? I would just say that part of your medicine, and I don't want to say that I'm projecting this on you, but I say it because it's healed me and I know it's healing other is your music, your playing.
Thank you.
And that's part of what you get to explore. What is your medicine?
It's funny you say that, Nat, because like last night, I played a gig sober for the first time in like, I don't know, 15 years, maybe more. I mean, I have played sober gigs before, but this time I was like sober and clear. There's a difference. And,
How did it feel?
liberating. Like, and I felt like what I was doing mattered, you know, and I felt like because I know, I mean, I'm not the best musician in the world. I don't practice enough. I don't, I'm a work in everyone's a work in progress. I'm not hung up on that. For me, the thing that I've got is I feel like I got to give energy through music,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I play, it means something, even if it's the wrong note or whatever. It's got meaning behind it. And I felt like sober, I had more intent behind the energy, if you know what I'm getting at. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're right, that is a medium. Like, other people have got art, visual art, or, they've got an ability to heal people through empathy or whatever. I don't have a lot of empathy, but I've got music.
Yes, you do.
Unfortunately, it doesn't put fires out.
Oh, it doesn't put fires out? What do you mean
No,
by
it doesn't.
that?
Well, just with my trade, it's not a very
Oh,
useful skill to have in my trade.
oh, I see. But again, it's for you. It's
Yeah.
medicine for you. That is so it's for you, but check this out. It's pretty crazy because you're tapping into your medicine, and this is for everybody who's on the podcast and listening. When you find your medicine and you start healing yourself using your medicine, you start to heal others. It's just a natural reaction. It's just what
Mm.
happens. It's not that you're saying I'm a healer. I would never call myself a healer. I don't think I'm a healer. Good morning, it's 152.
But what if
But
you are?
I'm healing myself. And as a result of me healing myself, healing starts to happen at a bigger scale. So there's a model, and I'm going to talk about it from a model, right? I'm going to get nerded out here. From a
Mm.
model, they're doing something called integral life practice. The model of integral life practice looks at the different ways that we see life: the I, the we, the it, the its. The I being what is my medicine for me and working on that, which then becomes a we thing because we start to heal together, which then heals cultural trauma, which then heals even bigger things like family lineages, like world issues, like altruism, where we give back in bigger ways. But we can't. So look at all the sages, and if you want to call them healers or the gurus or the any anybody who understands the great work tells you it starts with you. Look inside, go within.
My mother used to always say to me, God is in everything. As in, you know, don't be looking for an entity. It's in you, like you
Yes,
are it, you
you
know?
are it. Yes, yes, you are.
And that doesn't mean, like, there's purists out there that would say, but that's incorrect, blah, blah, blah. I think with what you said before, like, that when you are it, and you start projecting like with purpose, then you are actually healing. Yeah, I understand what you mean. That's a really important point.
Yeah, you are. And here's the deal, you are, it lives within you, and the spark is in you. The spark's there. So all you have to do is ignite the flame, right? Because it's like the spark
Yeah.
is there, but where's the flame? So when I get into talking about the staff and standing up with your staff and being like Moses with his staff, and that staff represents the divine will and fire energy, we light the torch within us, and then our light shines, and then it illuminates another. So it's like passing the torch in the Olympics, right? That light, that fire will stay lit, but I can light somebody else's fire. I'm not taking away my own. I still have my fire, and now their fire's lit. It's the cry. It's the same thing as the crying. There was something that touched inside of your soul, but I didn't even touch you. But it touched you. Do you see? Something inside you ignited in that moment, but I didn't even touch you. I've never even seen you. I don't even know. Linga, I have no idea. If I passed you on the street, I wouldn't even know it. I don't even know what you look like.
It's very unlikely that it's going to happen. We've got more chance of passing on a boat.
You're like, I would know her, but I don't think. And
Well,
no,
I wouldn't really.
don't get the universe twisted, Linga. If I'm supposed to meet you, it'll happen, and we
True.
have no control over that kind of stuff. But I would never know. If I passed you, I would have no clue, right? But
Yeah.
yet we have the ability to ignite a healing in somebody, not because we're healers, but because we're healing ourselves. So you heal others through your music, and really it's your medicine. You're doing it because it's something that you connect to yourself. It does something for
Yeah.
you. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
whatever that is, and that's just one way of healing.
Yeah. Yeah, like I find yoga does that too, but that's movement, you know.
Sure.
And like you were talking about kung fu, and that's, energy flow and movement.
Yep.
Really,
Yep.
that's probably like a physical manifestation of healing, or
Yes.
medicine, so to speak.
Yep.
Like the old Chinese people that do, what do you call it?
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi, but also the yin energy that they move around.
That's Tai Chi.
Qigong,
Oh, Qigong. Qigong.
Qigong, yeah.
So there's
That's pretty
Qigong.
insane as well, hey?
So my kung fu is part, Tai Chi is part of kung fu, and Qigong is part of the kung fu. Um, so I do Qigong, Tai Chi, and then I do all of the kung fu animal forms and weapons. And that system is probably the most profound system, in my
Mm.
opinion. This is mine. I'm not saying it's the only, but for me, is the most profound system that I have ever come across.
It's very
Why?
old.
It is old. It's old, and not only that, but it is a ritual. It There are myth stories connected to every single movement, form. It's almost like a dance, but it's not, because it's literally a method of protection. It is a warrior to protect and to serve. That's how I feel. I'm not here learning how to battle, just go out and start battles. I'm here to protect. If somebody were to come and try to steal the women and children and all that again, I would be the warrior protecting those people. That's warrior status. And
Mm.
I'll be honest with you, I think most people that are in addiction are warriors. We're the protectors and the servers, but we've been ripped of that.
Oh, I see what you mean. So what you're saying is that, that's not for everybody, but some people that have that inherent either like lineage or like transgenerational knowledge or purpose have been poisoned and are no longer able to serve that will.
That's correct.
And so we label them as addicts, but they're actually stronger than your average person. They're just afflicted.
Amen. Now imagine that all these people
Probably
overcame
why
the
I
poison,
cried.
overcoming the addiction. And when you overcome it and you can stand in your warrior status, we're the ones who they fear the most. They fear those that have had the rough childhoods, that now are educated, that are warriors, because now it's a two-pronged thing. It's not just that we're standing with our staffs, we're also educated, and we've overcome the poison that they fed us.
Mm, that's cool.
Yeah. So hold your staff. That's what I was saying. My friend who passed away, he held the staff for our community. I mean, his death impacted a lot of people in our community. That's what I'm going to say. His death had an impact. Why? Because he held the platform for our warriors. He was like, there's nothing wrong with you. Your story matters. He overcame. He knew the struggles and the battles. But every single one of those people who overcome the addiction, they become the warriors that protect and serve, because they understand. They've been through the battle. You're going through a battle. I went through a battle. It's not easy to overcome the poison.
Did 10 years is a long time, right?
Hmm.
When you started your battle, did you ever anticipate you would get to this moment?
No, that's what scared me. There was a moment where I cried because I was like, I prayed because I've always been spiritual. God, I've never not known God, but I prayed and I cried. I said, God, I can't see my life without this. I don't know what's going on. I'm not serving. That's what I said. That was my cry, and I'm going to cry even saying it. I wasn't serving the way that I was supposed to serve, but I didn't know how because it was taken from me. I had the calling, I felt it, but I didn't know
Mm.
how. Where were my ancestors? Where were the people to teach me? I've had nobody sit there and teach me. I've had to teach myself everything. And along the way, I found elders to help me, but I didn't have someone say, let's go to the earth. And I told my mom and dad, please, I want a farm. I just want to live on a farm in the earth. And I want to, and that, of course, that didn't happen, right? Because they had to work and we lived in the city, and that's not what I wanted.
Mm.
But I had to overcome this, and I cried. There was a day, Lingo, yeah, I cried. And I said, I was like, I can't see my life without alcohol. And that scared the shit out of me because I felt like it had power over me. And that's where I was like, no, no, this doesn't have power over me. No, no.
It's like it's pretty profound, hey. It's a pretty profound thing to be able to see it for what it is. Like that's a big thing. Like that doesn't come around, and you know, like you should be really proud of yourself that you discovered that, you know, without help. Because 10 years ago, you you could have missed that moment, and then you could be somewhere else now.
I would be dead right now. That's really
But you
what
don't
I'd
know.
be. No, I would. I literally was, I was sick. I got sick.
Mm.
I was sick. And I think, and I'm still, because I literally have iron issues. And I think a lot of that had to do with my gut health and everything like that. I buried friends. Let's just say this. I had a very dear friend of mine who I love so much. And these are good people, Linga, right? I mean, just the
Mm.
most amazing, but I've lost so many friends to addiction. And she was an alcoholic, and I buried her, you know? I had to bury her. I had to hold her casket and bury her. That was too young. We were young, early
Mm.
30s,
Wow.
you know? Why? Because and she was a warrior, and I look at all these people and I'm like, she was a badass. She didn't let people, she spoke her mind. She was powerful, but she didn't have a ritual. She didn't understand what it meant. Nobody taught us. We were just doing whatever we wanted to do. That was ripped from our culture.
I often talk with my wife about uh, just the universe and how we got here and stuff like this. And one of the discussions that we keep having is that, you know, she she says she can see things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she gets visions, like visions of when the kids are sick. Like she'll see two different things and then she draws them for me and I go, oh, that's streptococcus and that's another bacteria. And she goes, like, because I'm trained, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll say to me, right, cool. And she'll scratch it up, throw it away. She'll go to the doctor and she'll say, um, there's two strains of bacteria. You need to treat him, you know, for these. But it's like divine, you know. And one of the
Right.
things that she mentioned to me was about this ongoing war of good and evil in the world. And it's
Mm-hmm.
happening everywhere. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
happening every
Mm-hmm.
single day
Mm-hmm.
in everyone's face.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question I have for you is if that's right, which I think everyone in the world knows that's right, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, is the poison there to keep the warriors from fighting for the good? Is the poison there to mask people from seeing the whole thing? Or why? Why is the poison there? Who's afraid of it?
So okay, this will be a very long answer, but let me see if I can shorten it. In the past, okay, let's go back to ancient civilization. We were at a point when you go back and you look at all of these, I'll tell you, they found these relics in over 70,000 years old or something like that it was in Africa. I can't remember where it was. Anyway, they talk about star people, they talk about aliens, they talk about, all of these civilizations. It's obvious that we were high advanced at one point, and the civilizations had wisdom and probably knowledge that we don't even have today. And they're still trying to figure it out, right? It was a lost wisdom, but it wasn't lost, it was hidden. Now, what happened is that the wisdom that was carried down was given to a select few, and through genocide, right? And through separation and taking away these rites and these rituals became amnesia. If you look, it only takes like 3 generations to completely wipe out the existence of something. And then they replace it with a new history or the stories that they want to create. So they create a storyline that's going to benefit them. Who? The select few, whoever has this secret wisdom. And then they hide it. That's why it's esoteric, it's hidden. And as it's hidden from the masses, people are confused because they don't know how to access it. But because the truth cannot be concealed, it eventually finds its way back to the people. And as it finds its way back to the people, we start to awaken. Now, there's different thought forms around this, and you can say India, like Brahman. Brahman falls asleep, Brahman wakes up, Brahman falls asleep, Brahman wakes up. So we can say that it's a universal pattern of falling asleep and waking up to who we are. But the individuals who understand this work, it's not that they get this information and they're going to battle for the good. I can still train. Let's say I trained an apprentice and I said I'm going to take on a student. That student can still turn dark and use it for sorcery. That doesn't mean they're going to use it for the good. It doesn't mean that. So what's happened is this sacred wisdom has been put in the hands of those individuals who've used it for manipulation. And I mean, this goes into bigger things like marketing. Everything that they market is based on sorcery, manipulation, more, better, bigger. Happiness is not in you, it's outside of you. And now it's a thing that you have to grasp at. And as we're grasping at happiness that's really internal, they're doing whatever they want to do. They're redirecting. The magic's happening. So that's what you said. They can see it in front. Everybody can see it. It's happening right in front of their face, but that's magic. Magic happens right in front of your face and you don't recognize it. And I don't want to say magic, I'd say sorcery. There's a distinction here. Sorcery being the dark arts and magic being the light arts. So there are individuals, though, that are poisoned, right, and don't have access to this wisdom so that they can then start to be the warriors that serve and help humanity, right, to raise the consciousness, to awaken those who are in a slumber, to get people out of this hypnosis that they've been under. Though that is what, and when I talk about this stuff, I'm like, are people getting it here? I think they get it, but to practice it and to live it is 2 different things. Conceptually knowing it's one, practicing it's another. Part of that practice is being sober and actually facing your demons. You've got to face it. If you don't face it, you can never, what you're doing is you're hindering the process of that. And what's missing is that, Linga, that there's, and I guarantee, and I'm almost going to say this like I know it, I could be wrong, that you've always known since you were young that you had a bigger purpose.
Yep.
That you had a calling, that you had something inside of you that was calling you forth, and you've been denying it. And you've been using alcohol and you're avoiding it because you're afraid. Afraid of what? That you may not actually get to where you need to go, that you may not actually do what you need to do, that you may screw it all up, that you're not worthy enough. Why you? I don't want this, but it's there.
Yep.
It's not going to go away. It's always going to be there. So part of the spiritual battle are the individuals like us waking up and getting to work. I get up and do spirit and coffee because that's my way of serving.
Oh, it's great.
That's what I do. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve.
But
I'm a
it's
servant.
reaching people and waking people up.
I certainly hope so.
Well, you've woken me up.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I probably was going to wake myself up anyway. But
That's right. Yes, you were. I'm you and you are me.
Yeah,
This
I was about
exchange.
to say that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The exchange happens. It is cool. That's why I tell people stay in the work because it's cool. You start seeing the magic show up everywhere. You're like, whoa, that's magic. That's right there is the miracle.
That's cool. Yeah.
So right now we're in a state of hypnosis, and some people will wake up because Aquarius is here, and Aquarius is a new era. So we're either going to wake up or we're not. Some people will not, and that's the hard part. It's just knowing that you can't make people wake up. They either do or they don't. It's not up to you. You can't decide who, you can't decide what. You just got to let it be what it is. And that's the hard part.
Is this a new age?
Mm-hmm.
When did it start?
Oh God, it's been in transition.
Okay.
So we will move from Pisces into Aquarius, and then the Mayan calendar reset completely into a new era. So I think it's 250,000 years is each cycle of an era. And Aquarius is like the age of I think it's enlightenment if I'm correct, but it's also the age of technology. And so we see technology, and there's this sort of I almost feel like there's these two worlds that are sort of happening, and people are starting to see. I feel like I'm walking in two different worlds. You have these people who are sort of being reprogrammed into, what I call like the few chosen that want them to be programmed. So there's a select people. Here's the deal. People are like, oh my God, it was on The Simpsons and then it happened. And that's prophecy. That's not prophecy. They're telling us what they're going to do before they do it. It's kind of like me saying, so in the future, I'm going to go to get my hair done and get my hair dyed. And then I display it as a cartoon and then I go do it. And then people say that that's prophet. That's not prophecy. They're creating the storyline and they're telling us what it is. They're telling us what the story is going to be before it happens. Not because they're prophesizing, because they're creating the story the way they want it. So what I try to teach people is that you have your own story. So you can create your own storyline. You don't need to listen to that storyline. It doesn't have to be your truth. You got to know who you are authentically so that you can create your world. And what ends up happening is you see two different worlds sort of arising. The world of people who are following what other people tell them through hypnosis and suggestion, and the people who are saying, no, I don't choose your story. I have my own.
That's you need to we all need to pause to think that properly, hey, deeply.
I'll need to pause, or you'll need to pause.
No,
All right.
I just think the world needs to pause to think about that,
Yeah.
It's like everything's running a million miles an hour, so it's nearly like
Yeah.
exploiting time time pressure is exploiting, people affording the opportunity to actually reflect on stuff. I've spoken to you before about Aboriginal culture, and the pace is so slow, and the star people that they used to draw in the caves and all that sort of stuff. It's slow because it's like, the smart person only moves once,
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. So now I'm going to get into something else. Time. You're bringing up the most important piece, time. And you cannot, so it is, okay, so we talk about time as, and this is where I get excited about these topics, but time itself was a social so people say, well, it was constructed by man, da 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 da. Okay, yes, it was. Okay, it was. However, we live in a time bound space. Now the natives, and if you go back and they marked time in a very different way, and we still have time marks, right? And that's we exist. The sun rises, the sun goes down. We have to understand time for agriculture, for all these different things. We have to understand what's going to happen. Okay, time is the key. Time is the key. So we think that money is the key. We think abundance comes from money. No, we have time. Time is our most precious gift. Now, in time, when you slow your time down, you can do more. When you speed time up, you do less. It's an interesting process, but we can slow our time and we can speed our time up, and people don't know that. So like you said, they're speeding up our time, right? So that we can't process what is actually happening. So we have to slow down.
Yeah.
That's,
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish your sentence.
I'm just saying that's the key. That is the key. People are like, well, we don't have time to contemplate all this stuff. How do you know all this stuff? You know what? If I told you how much I do in my day with my time, but okay, how do you get to the other side of time? How do you experience time from the other perspective?
It's really interesting because there's a couple of things that used to do my head in. Like when people say, I'm time poor. And I'm like, you got exactly the same amount of time as me.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
no one is time poor.
No.
That's a stupid construct. And if it was that, why don't we all have different watches? You know what I mean?
Right.
You should have a watch with like less hours on it or whatever. But the other one is like, I had this calendar, and I got it from what do you guys call it? Drugstore or pharmacy, right? There's just those cheap calendars, and they got the moon and the tides and the public holidays and all that shit on them, and then they got like a stupid ad on the top, and then the ones I'm talking about.
I think so.
Like
Yeah.
spiral bound, and you just
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you stick with them for a year because you just got it in January and you just kept it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not flash. It's just shit. You just kept it.
Right.
So on the backs of the pages, sometimes I have facts about things like, I don't know, the Earth or Sun or whatever. And one of the things on the back was the history of the calendar. And I read about it. And good old Pope Gregory in the 13th century or whatever it was decided he was going to change the calendar. and put 12 months in it and get rid of, the paganism and all that shit.
Yep.
And I had this moment where years ago I would have had to been stoned to have it, but I just took the time to contemplate, sober. And I stood there and I went, what the hell? Some dude just made up this calendar and we are all following it.
Yep. Yep.
All of us.
Yep. Not all of us. I mean, yes and no. Yes and no.
Yes and no, exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I looked up my birthday, which is the 25th of July, and I realized that I was actually born on the main calendar's day out of time. So in the main calendar, the 25th of July is like it's the equivalent of the 29th of February, It's the day that's out of time.
Right.
And the significance of that was, I always look at the calendar and go, what the hell? I don't get this. It doesn't make any sense to me. I researched a little bit about that and that inner knowing, like you're talking about, and I'm sure everyone in here has got it. Like, there is no one immune from it. We all have a purpose. But having this feeling that I had another role in life,
Yep.
like another thing, and then piecing it together and going, people don't get me, but I'm not mad. You know what I mean?
Sure. And that's the point. People don't get you because your thoughts might be a little bit different, but you may be the holder of this wisdom that's trying to communicate with you, trying to come through you, right?
Even if I don't understand it.
Exactly. You're not, and really, honestly, you're the conduit of the information. It's not really you, but it is you again. So even with me, I'll do these podcasts and I'm like, I go back and I'm like, whoa, who was that? That was not, because me in my person, when I'm Natalie, and I can distinguish between the two because we're recycling ancient wisdom that we didn't make up. This is not made up. It's been here. We didn't discover it. Like people say, oh, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he didn't discover shit. He used the chakra system and he put it in a pyramid and then he made it masculine and didn't even honor the feminine. So don't get me started on all that. But literally, I'm like, you didn't discover anything. You merely took the information and shared it with the world. And that's like for me, so for Linga, for you, and I think this should be exciting for you to understand that there is some wisdom that you get to share in some way. I don't know how. I don't know what it looks like for you, that is trying to come through you, and that you're the conduit for that. I get downloads of sacred geometry and how to use different things for different, and I have no idea about, I don't know anything about physics and all that stuff, but when I do my models and charts and I put it together, if I go back and look at physics, it's exactly what they've done in physics, and I didn't even take no physics class. So the wisdom is coming through you. Now their application of how they're using it is different than what I use it for. So that's the distinction, right? Some of these people have used this sacred wisdom to manipulate the masses for their own benefit, which is what I call sorcery. They do it over and over again. Okay.
Disney.
They bastardize all of the, yes, I mean, and let's just say the ones that are in control right now, the ones that think they're in control right now, the ones that are creating the storyline at this point, yes, they know this information. They misuse it. They do.
But they have insecurity about the fact that they know that that the darkness can't win.
Yeah. And it's beyond and it's even beyond the doctors. It's
or darkness, I said. Yeah.
Oh, the darkness, the darkness. I thought you said doctors. I was like,
Yeah.
because that's a big part of it, right? They're feeding us the poison. Um, that the darkness, yeah, and it's not, and that's another thing. So as a spiritual alchemist, it's not about winning or losing the darkness because from my, and this is my perspective, the darkness are just people who are not ready to see the truth or to know the truth. They're just not ready. They'd rather stay in darkness than to illuminate into the truth.
Yeah.
So they'd
Yeah.
rather
It's a
stay in
poor
there.
choice of words.
Mhm.
I don't know. I was looking for another word, but yeah.
No, 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 no. It's not a poor choice of words. I'm saying yes. Yes. They can't
What?
overcome it.
I'm
It
smiling.
gets, I'm glad you're smiling because it's hard because sometimes I'm talking about this stuff and I'm like, people truly getting what I'm telling them. I don't know. I think some, yes, because again, it's a small percentage of the population who can even stay. Like if I look at the podcast, we have a tiny percent of people that will stay from beginning to end and really kind of say, yes, I'm getting it. I understand what's happening. Some people can get to a point and they're like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. Or I'm not ready for that. That's not my thing. I'm over here. But to stick in, and me, this is my conversations all day every day, so it's a lot. It becomes very heavy for some people, but the
Well,
percentage of the individuals that stay are really waking. They're awakened. They want to know. They're trying to figure out what their purpose is. They're
yeah,
like, what is
you're
my purpose, my
beautiful.
true purpose?
You're beautiful, Nat. That's a very, like, that's a very generous thing to do for people.
Yeah, well,
And I
thank
know,
God.
I know you don't do it for that reason, but you
Well,
know,
thank God, because God's the one who said, girlfriend, you're doing this. And I said, okay, I'll just listen. I'm your puppy. I'll just do whatever you tell me to do. I just think that's funny.
that's beautiful.
No, it's true, right? We do things because we feel that calling, and it's not really, sometimes it's not us. We're kicking and screaming. And God is like, no, you're doing this. And I'm like, okay. Because there were days where I was like, man, I don't want to do it. And God was like, oh, yeah, you are. And I'm like, okay, fine. Kicking and screaming. Right. But that's how you feel, right? And then that's where we feel like
Yeah,
we're falling short. We're human. Like, I'm like, my body and vessel can't take it sometimes. It's like a lot of work. That's why I said those who are committed to the work 100%, it's not fun. Nobody says
yeah,
this is fun. It is, it can be, but the reality is most of it's very, very deep work and we take on a lot. It's a
and
lot.
maybe that's where some of that source of addiction comes from as well. Is because you just
Hmm.
want to get away from it. You just want to get away from it at
And that's,
times in your
yes, and that's
life,
why,
you know?
yes, yes, Linga, and that's why your medicine. So here's the deal with medicine. You don't have to share it with anybody. That's where your medicine comes in. So finding those to get away from it is finding your medicine. What's going to help you to reground, what's going to help you to spend time with you, to nurture yourself, to support you so that you can cure and heal yourself.
Okay.
Back to that same question, but you have a gift. Look, Linga, you and I are connected for a purpose, right?
Yep.
The intention of Spirit and Coffee is to help people to awake to their divine purpose.
Yep.
If that's the intention and you're connected to it, that means that you are really seeking your divine purpose.
Whether I know it or not. Yep.
Oh, you are. It's a lot. It's a big, it's tall orders. No, it's a lot. But here's the deal, you have this power within you and you know it. And all you need to do, should you choose, is to talk to your grandfather. Ask him to guide you. Obviously, he's there. He came up in your conversation. You talked about him quite a bit, so there's something there. He's trying to communicate with you in some way. It could be through a dream. It could be through the unconscious mind. You hear these voices that come up that you know aren't yours, and you're like, okay, I get it. I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
And connect in with that.
Okay.
What's my medicine? And ask him, do we have a medicine? What was our medicine in the day? What did we do? What was our ancestors? What did our lineage do to heal? Did they do drum ceremonies? Did they do, go out did they do plant medicine? Did they do, what kind of music did we do? What was that all about? I'm starting to dive into my cultural and so I'll tell you right now what's happening for me, just so you know. There's an energy, an archetypal energy that's starting to surface in my world. And this energy is telling me to work with her. And that's why I asked you if you were by the water when you talked about the lady in the white,
I
because
live near the water though.
do you? So
Mm-hmm.
La Llorona, and I don't know if you've ever heard of La Llorona, but La Llorona is the lady of the river. And there's stories
Mm-hmm.
about her. There's these myths about her, and she was demonized. But she's been talking to me. She's been coming to me. And it's a story of cultural healing. It's beyond my understanding at this point, but I'm working with the energy to try to understand what's the message. What do you want? What are you trying to tell me? And working with that energy. So you have energies that are trying to communicate to you.
Yeah. I recently had a month off. I'm back at work today, and I had this moment when I went back to the saltwater lands of where I grew up,
Mhm.
and I reconnected with the country, and I reconnected with the ocean, and I reconnected with just the vibrations of the land, and it woke me up. It woke me up, and I think something that people can do. This is just my um, bit of advice for whoever listens to this: is go go find these places and immerse yourself in them. Like, get your head out of your phone and just look around and like take your shoes off and just connect and talk to it. You know, because everything's vibrating at a frequency that you can hear it and you can feel it if you choose to connect to it. And when you do choose to connect to it, there might be a message in it for you, or there might be healing, or there might be like a change to your frequency that allows you to move forward. And I think that the ancestry discussion that you were talking about is about the guidance, but I think the land is always there, and I think there's a connection between country and ancestry and the spiritual realm that you need to piece together.
Absolutely. That's perfectly said. Yes. You're on a big journey right now, Linga. I want you to know that I'm here for you. I hope you understand that.
Okay, I'll send you an
How-
email.
however, in any which way I can support, that's what I'm here for. To guide, to support, right? And I know that there's something inside. I know there is. I could feel it. That's the thing. I could feel it. So your energy is vibrating all the way over here, which is
Cool.
far away.
Yeah, it's far away.
It is, but it's not, right? If we looked at quantum physics, it's
It's
instantaneous.
not. It's actually there now.
It's there and it's here. and it's beautiful. And I've had these individuals throughout my time with my podcast that we have these connections, and it's really quite beautiful. That's why I tell people watch this podcast because it's authentic, and these connections, they just arise authentically. There's no force. We don't need to force it. It just happens, right? It just so happens that you said you saw me and boom, it was that divine timing. That's why people say, I'm sorry I didn't get on your podcast. I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to be sorry. The message is here for who it's supposed to be here for.
It just
Literally.
annoys me that it's called coffee and it's on at like 1 o'clock in the morning for me. Because if I had coffee, I'd never sleep.
You could do spirit and water. It's okay. Or spirit and tea. You can do tea. Tea's fine. Whatever you want.
I could do tea, you're right.
As long as, and that's why I put spirit first, because spirit first, coffee is just something I love and it's in the morning, and that's why it's spirit and coffee. But literally it's, spirit first. Let spirit guide you. The spirit's talking to you. There's a big message for you, Linga. I feel it. And I think you're going to give back in a beautiful way. And if you need support through your journey of staying or being sober and working through it, um, I'm more than welcome to connect with you in any way to help you through that process.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. And
Of course.
I think that's a nice realization, because people go, "You're not really alcoholic." I'm like, I don't really care whether I am or I'm not. I have to give it up.
Yes.
Yep,
I know. That's what they told me. You're not an alcoholic. I'm like, how do you know? I know that
I am. You care anyway.
Exactly. This is something I need to do. And I'll tell you what happens as you journey through that. You will become a whole different person. And your people might, friends, they might move on. It might change the dynamics of things. And that could be a hard and challenging part of it, because people expect you to be this one way and you become something totally different. So it does. It changes the dynamics. It's not an easy process. I lost friends, of course, but guess what? Now I have friends who accept me for exactly who I am, and they know that I don't drink, and they're totally okay. I end up being their designated driver, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I can provide safety. Remember, protect and serve. So I'm protecting them from, maybe getting in an accident and, all that stuff. So, they understand that I don't drink, and they don't try to force me or make me do things that I don't want to. So it might change the dynamics of your relationships, and you might strengthen others.
I hope so.
It will.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
I'm going to send you some beautiful photos. Thank you for talking to me this morning.
Oh, Linga, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and so much love to you and your family and your children and your wife and all that, and prayers and blessings. And I'm so proud of you. You just keep doing what you're doing. And I good things to come. I feel it. I really do. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Awesome. Have a great day, Linga.
You too. See ya. Can you
Bye.
hang up on me?
Oh. I don't want to hang up on you, but I can. Let's see.
Hang up on me.
Hang up on you. Okay. Bye. Awesome. All right. There you go, you guys. What a beautiful spirit and coffee. What an opportunity and a blessing to pay honor to a person who, worked with people through addiction, and then to be able to heal in some way and leave the legacy of healing through addiction, which I think is greater than anything, right? That we can heal together. Such a beautiful time, yes. And thanks, Tony. It was beautiful, right? Linga's is such a great soul. And so Swan 52, I don't know if you're still on here. Sorry, I didn't read your comments. I tend to like want to focus on the people that call in and really be with them through the process of everything. So, and I know some people have tried to call in the past. So, thank you guys for hanging in there. For those who continued watching the entire time, it's probably one of the longest Spirit and Coffees I've had. But beautiful people. Do you see? That's what this is about. And when you guys can feel confident to share your stories, you honestly will start the healing in your own world. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for allowing me to cry. And we'll continue on this journey together. So I love you. Have the most magnificent, magical, marvelous, miraculous Monday ever. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.